we're about to start the online seminar pretty soon. Today we will talk about what's the vitrification and the benefit of vitrification, and also what is the Cryotec method, and also tips for a successful result. So some of you might know already about the Cryotec method, but I hope you can find a new knowledge today. And Yui, the instructor, Cryotec instructor, will be the presenter today. And also, I would like to introduce our new director, Mr. Matsuo.
Hello, nice to see you. Thank you very much for your attending this fruitful workshop. Today, this is the first time of the time balance area, and I believe the many countries embryologist and medical doctor will attend the workshop. This workshop will be presented not only our product, but also the background of the curing the medical area, and we would like to be the ReproLife would like to be a good partner with you, and every time we would like to proceed with the best solution to you. And if you would like, if you have any questions, please add the wording in the chat. And after this workshop, we will inform you about our comments from the UE. And today we plan to issue the official certificate for you to join this workshop. And until the end of this workshop, you will be able to apply for the registration of the requested certificate. And according to the time for you to attend this workshop, we will issue the official certificate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So one more thing to add. Anyone, probably some of you might from Middle East. We are attending the conference in Dubai during December 2nd to 4th. So if you are anyone planning to visit Dubai for MEFS 2021, please stop by our booth. We also have a hands-on training there. So hope to see you there. Okay, Yui, are you ready to start? Okay, let's get started.
Okay, I'm ready to start. Okay, so thank you very much for attending our online seminar today in your busy schedules. My name is Yui. I'm working at ReproLife as a technical support team. I think that some of the topics of today's sessions might be you have already known, but I hope you all enjoy it today. Okay, so let's start the presentations. Okay, so here are today's topic. Okay, so the first, fertility treatment and cryopreservations. And the second, the benefit of the vitrification method. And then number 3, the mechanism of vitrification. And number 4 and 5, I would like to introduce the Cryotec protocol, vitrification process and warming process. Okay, so first, the fertility treatment and cryopreservations. So how cryopreservation contributes to the art treatment. Okay, so this is a very basic topic, so I will talk about it very briefly. And it is estimated that 1 in 7 couples have difficulty getting pregnant today. And there are many people who have difficulty achieving pregnancy. even if they live a normal life and have no symptoms. So there are two types of fertility treatment, the general fertility treatment and the more advanced one, the art treatment. General treatment including the timing therapy and IUI. And art treatment includes IVF, ICSI, embryo transfer, and fertility preservations. Okay. So frozen embryo transfer is the part of the embryo transfer that involves cryopreservations, which is the main topic of this seminar. And there are many treatments available for male infertility. And of course, there is also cryopreservation technique. Okay, so the clinical implications are probably the almost same in all countries. So here I would like to introduce the clinical implication of oocyte and embryo freezing in Japan. Number one, to avoid multiple pregnancies. According to the Japanese Society of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the position on the prevention of multiple pregnancies in assisted reproductive treatment, the single embryo transfer is generally recommended. But the multiple embryo transfer can only be used if the patient is over 35 years old or has had 2 or more consecutive unsuccessful pregnancies. And number 2, to avoid ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, OHSS, the possibility of cryopreservation reduces the number of follicles to be developed in the first place, thus reducing the incidence of OHSS. Also, if a severe case of OHSS is expected during the fresh cycles, it is possible to freeze all the embryos instead of performing an embryo transfer in that cycles, and then perform an embryo transfer in the next cycles to prevent a severe case of OHSS. Additionally, the number 3, that it is possible to improve the pregnancy rate by improving the implantation environment, like implantation window. The abnormally high hormone levels associated with hyperovulation stimulations can damage the endometrial environment and reduce the implantation rate. Therefore, by carrying out freezing, it is possible to set the implantation date according to the implantation window. And number 4, to reduce the physical, mental, and financial burden on the patient. Number 5, application to genetic diagnosis. Number 6, to stop the aging of oocyte and embryos. And the last one, the number 7, the preservation of the fertility. Okay. So now let's talk about the types of the cryopreservation method. What is the vitrification, and why has the vitrification method remained steadfast? Okay, so you have already known about the types of the cryopreservation method. There are mainly two types of the cryopreservation method. So slow freezing and vitrification. The main differences between slow freezing and vitrification is the concentration of the cryoprotectant used and the process used to vitrify the cells. So slow freezing is the slow passage through the eutectic point causes the ice crystals to form fast outside of the cells. The difference in the osmotic pressure causes the cells to dehydrate and freeze. An extracellular water freezes before the formation of ice crystals inside the cells. If an ice crystals form outside of the cells, the water is removed from the extracellular environment. Then there is an osmotic imbalance between the inner and outer cell membranes, and the water moves out of the cells. an increase in the concentration of the solute outside of the cells, as well as an increase the concentration of solute inside of the cells due to the water loss from the cells can be detrimental to cell survival. And on the other hand, if too much water is retained in the cell, damage from intercellular ice crystal formations and recrystallizations during the thawing can lead the cell death. The cooling rate has a major influence on these phenomena. While vitrification is rapid cooling brings the cells quickly to the vitrification point, the high cooling rate reduces the risk of cell damage caused by high concentration of Cpa. And to put it more simply, the slow freezing means freezing very slowly, and vitrification means freezing very fast. So from the next slide, I will talk about the cooling rate, the concentration of cryoprotectant, and the survival rate for each cryopreservation method. Okay, so the slow freezing, as the name suggested, is a slow freezing process. In the slow freezing, low concentration of the cryoprotectant, such as 1 to 2 molar, are used to form ice crystals outside the cells and dehydrate cells at a slow cooling rate of minus 0.3 to 0.5 per minute, thereby increasing the concentration of the cryoprotectant inside the cells and vitrifying the cells in the liquid nitrogen. So it is difficult to completely eliminate the cryo injury caused by ice crystals in the slow freezing method. Therefore, the generally reported the survival rate is approximately the 70 to 80%, with particularly low result for oocyte and the blastocyst. And the slow freezing also requires expensive equipment, such as program freezers, in order to achieve slow freezing. In contrast, in the vitrification method, the embryos are placed in the liquid nitrogen with a high concentration of the cryoprotectant, such as 6 to 8 molar, which can vitrify the solution itself. And this allows the embryos to be vitrified inside and outside the cells in an instant at up to around 20,000 degrees Celsius per second without the formation of ice crystals. And this makes it possible to eliminate cryo injury caused by ice crystals. And also the survival rate is very high at 90 to 98% for embryos of all stages. Furthermore, the vitrification method does not require a program freezers, which is necessary with the slow freezing method. So from this point of view, the vitrification method has now become the mainstream method for reproducible and excellent result. And it has made a significant contribution to the art treatment. Okay, and in the past, the cryopreservation of human eggs was a dream story. And oocyte and fertilized eggs are more difficult to freeze and thaw than the other somatic cells or sperm. And safe cryopreservation requires a special and expensive equipment and skilled technique. Additionally, the results were far from the satisfactory, especially for unfertilized eggs, and the survival rate was really low. However, the cryopreservation technology has developed over the years, and vitrification is now one of the easiest and the safest method of cell freezing available worldwide. And it has changed the conventional wisdom of specializations, high cost, and low survival rate, making it possible for anyone to preserve oocyte and embryos safely and semi-permanently and in theory without any loss of the quality. In fact, as mentioned in the previous slide, the survival rate of human embryos using the vitrification method is over 90% compared to 70 to 80% using conventional method. Okay, so here is the current situation in Japan for your reference. This bar graph shows the number of babies born through the assisted reproductive technology in 2019, according to the Japanese Society of Obstetrics and Gynecology. About 60,000 babies were born through the ART treatment in 2019, which means that 1 in 15 babies was born through the ART. And also the number of the ART birth is increasing every year with frozen embryo transfers accounting for a notably large proportion of the total. And in 2019, this percentage has increased even further with 86.7% of babies born through the frozen embryo transfer, compared to only 30.7% through fresh embryo transfer. Therefore, about 90% of ART babies were born by FET cycles in 2019. So these are the pregnancy rate by year in Japan. The red line shows the pregnancy rate for FET cycles, and the blue line shows the pregnancy rate for fresh embryo transfer. So since 2002, the pregnancy rate for FET cycles has been higher than that of the fresh cycles. And FET cycles have become mainstream in Japan. It has also been reported that there is no significant differences in fetal growth, congenital abnormalities, or perinatal risk between FET cycles compared to the fresh cycles. And I'm going to change the subject a little bit. As you can see from this graph, the pregnancy rate seems a little bit low. The main reason for this is thought to be that the fact that the fertility treatment is often carried out at an older age. Although the aging of the oocyte is now widely known in Japan, the treatment still starts late. And in 2019, for example, the highest total number of cycles out of all ages was 40 years old, followed by 41, 42, and 43 years old. So this high proportion of patients over the age of 40 years old, in other words, the aging of the fertility treatment patient populations is a challenge for Japan. Okay, so let's have a look at the survival rate in Japan. And as I mentioned before, in Japan, there are 650 IVF centers, and 90% of IVF babies were born by frozen embryo transfer in 2019. So why we ReproLife regard the survival rate after sowing as important? So you have already known about the patient who tried to do the IVF treatment. They have high hope to do the embryo transfer once they did oocyte retrieval. So we try to not decrease the parameter as possible. That is why we look upon the post-survival rate, but it is too difficult to find a good method because there are so many freezing methods recently. So you can find good method by checking the survival rate as one indicator. Okay, so let's take a look at average survival rate in each stage of embryos in Japan. Okay, So cleavage stages and blastocyst stages are 98 to 99%. The on-site vitrification is not so many cases in Japan, but average is around 90%. Okay, so I'd like to introduce the truth of the 90% survival rate. So please focus on the round graph on this slide. For example, if the survival rate is 90%, there will be 10% dead oocyte. So what is this 10% and what kind of oocyte they are? They might be the bad quality oocyte. However, for all the patients, cancer patients and patients have health issues, it might be natural that they can only get this type of oocyte. And as you can see these situations, unfortunately, these patients always be included in 10%. Therefore, the 90% survival means that 0% survival for them who strongly need this technique. Okay, so now I would like to show you some data that summarizes the oocyte and embryo survival rate using the Cryotec method, the protocol of which I will introduce later. And this graph is summary of the data we have received from the centers that have participated in our project, Challenge 100. The Challenge 100 is a project designed to help embryologists improve their skills and performances. On the right, you can see some of the facilities that have participated and achieved this project. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the mechanism of vitrifications, cryoprotective Cpa, and ice crystal formations. Okay, so some of you have already known about it, but first of all, we have to know who will kill our oocyte or embryos. Okay, so there are mainly 5 causes of oocyte and embryosis. The number 1, temperature. The temperature is related to the ice crystal formations. Number 2, toxicity of Cpa. And number 3, the osmotic shock. An osmotic shock will induce hyperdehydrations and hyperhydrations. And number 4, inexperienced and wrong procedures. And the last one is quality of oocyte or embryos. But unfortunately, we can't do anything about the quality of oocyte or embryos. But from number 1, temperature, to number 3, osmotic shock, are able to improve as understand the mechanism of vitrifications. Also, if you have followed the wrong procedures to understand the mechanism correctly, you will also be able to improve your skills and protect your patient, oocyte, or embryos. So the reason why oocyte and embryo freezing has been considered too difficult is due to a phenomenon called ice crystal formations. In a word, the ice crystal formation means that the water in the cells crystallizes during the freezing and it destroys the cells. So let me explain why this happens. About 60% of the human body, our body, is made up of water. So this is the water molecules formations. And there is a lot of water in our cells. The water is the only substance in nature that expand in a volume when it becomes solid. The mechanism is that when the thermal energy decreases and also the activity of the water molecules decreases, the water molecules join hands to form a homogeneous net-like structures. The molecules that were moving freely on their own will take up more space. It's like becoming bulkier by forming a 3-dimensional structures as shown in this figure, even if the number of molecules in the place is the same. Unlike other somatic cells or the sperm, the oocyte or embryo cells with a high water content, and they are more susceptible to the effect of ice crystal formations. And for many years, it was said that their cryopreservation was extremely difficult because the excessive expansion could cause the cell membrane breaking, like the cell will be destroyed from inside. Okay, so let me give you an example of ice crystal formation in a familiar context. You have probably seen the juice or drippings that comes out of the meat when it is frozen and thawed for use. This is due to the fact that the water in the meat cells has expanded during the freezing, like making the ice crystal formations, and has broken down the cell membranes of the meat, causing the water in the cells to run off during the thawing. Unfortunately, I can't really taste the differences between the fresh meat and the frozen thawed meat, but basically the reason why thawed meat is said to be less tasty is because the cells are broken. And one more example, if you have ever used the ice tray, you have seen the ice crystals themselves. The white crystals that form in the center of the ice. So you might have noticed that when you fill an ice tray with water, the surface rises slightly when the ice forms. This is because the volume of the water has expanded during the freezing due to the ice crystal formations. In the vitrification process, the water in the cells is replaced by a solution containing a substance called cryoprotectant, which dehydrates the cells using osmotic pressure differences. The cryoprotectant intervenes between the water molecules to prevent the formation of ice crystals, and the oocyte or embryo is then immersed in the liquid nitrogen at a very low temperature, minus 196 degrees Celsius. To put it more simply, when the water molecules are initially liquid, they move freely, but as their energy decreases due to the cooling, they become less and less mobile. At this point, the molecules would normally join hands under this situation to form crystalline structures. And it was how ice crystals form. The volume of the ice crystal expands more than that of the liquid due to the gaps created when the molecules hold hands. So to prevent these reactions from taking place, we need to put more than 50% of something other than water in between them. Then as the temperature drops and the energy is lost, the water molecules move sluggishly. That eventually, when there is not enough energy to move, the substance becomes frozen, just as if it had become ice. So when a substance loses its liquidity, it is called vitrification. But strictly speaking, it is not solidification. Okay, so as I mentioned before, there's something other than water that act as a hindrance at this time is called a cryoprotectant Cpa. So cryoprotectant is that to obstruct ice crystal formation, then protect cells. And there are two types of CPAs. One is membrane permeable CPAs, and another one is membrane impermeable CPAs. The molecular weight is that can be transmitted is less than 400 in the zona pellucida and less than 100 in the cell membrane. The membrane permeable and impermeable CPAs are commonly included to the vitrification solutions. The concentration of here, the varies from the manufacturer to manufacturer. So as permeable CPAs, for example, propandiol, molecular weight 76, ethylene glycol 62, DMSO 78, and so on. These CPAs are included to take a lot of flowing into cells and protect cells. So for your reference, in the Cryotec method, ethylene glycol and DMSO are included, but the basically two types of permeable CPAs are often included. Why we need to put two CPAs in the solutions? The answer is that to put multiple permeable CPAs makes solution have less their toxicities. For example, if you make 50% saline solutions, you can't drink it because of too salty. Likewise, if you make 50% sugared water, probably you also can't drink it because of too sweety. However, for example, if you mix 20% salt and 20% sugar and make 50% something drink, it might be easy to have it for you. So it is important to put multiple permeable CPAs for making each CPAs have less their inherent toxicities. As impermeable CPAs, the sucrose, the molecular weight is 342, the trehalose, molecular weight 342 as well, and HBC, 200,000, and so on. And the sucrose and trehalose are included to promote dehydration of cells. And in HPC is included to make solutions higher viscosity. And for your reference, the Cryotic method, we use trehalose instead of sucrose because trehalose is endotoxin-free and has a vitrification probability twice as high as sucrose. Therefore, the Cryotic solutions has high probability of vitrifications, not making lower CPA concentrations. Okay, so before moving to the protocol part, I will talk about the dangerous temperature range where ice crystal formation is likely to occur. And then I will move on to the last topic. Okay, and oocyte and embryos are incubated at 37 degrees Celsius, the same temperature as the human body. So when we cryopreserve them, the temperature becomes minus 196 degrees Celsius. And it is found that the ice crystal formations occurs rapidly in the temperature range of minus 20 to minus 80 degrees Celsius. So before the advent of the vitrification, the slow freezing technique was used to preserve cells by controlling cooling rate with special equipment to prevent the formation of ice crystals in the cells. But the vitrification method, also known as ultra-rapid vitrification freezing, uses instantaneous cooling rather than a controlled cooling. And another key point of the vitrification method is that it is possible to freeze without the formation of ice crystals as long as the dangerous temperature range is quickly passed. The thawing process also passes through this temperature range to return to the 37 degrees Celsius. So the warming rate is maximized as well as the cooling rate. And as mentioned at the beginning, this means that the special equipment used in the past is no longer necessary and that anyone with solutions, a container, and liquid nitrogen can perform the procedures anywhere. Okay, and the most dangerous temperature area for oocyte and embryo is neither in the liquid nitrogen nor in the lab. So which part of the temperature range is the most dangerous part? It is in the gas phase of the liquid nitrogen. So this is the yellow part of this slide. So therefore, during the vitrification and the sowing process, the cooling rack should be filled as much as possible with the liquid nitrogen in order to eliminate this gas phase, like this. Okay. And even if the optimum cooling rate is carefully maintained and vitrification is successful, the oxide can easily be destroyed if the warming rate is too low. So the first key to safe freezing and thawing is how to maximize the cooling rate and warming rate and get through the critical temperature range. Okay, so from the next slide, I would like to talk about the Cryotec vitrification. Okay, so before moving to the vitrification protocol, I would like to introduce the Cryotec method a little bit. So you have already known about the Cryotop method, but I briefly explain about the Cryotop method. The Cryotop method is Dr. Koyama's old product, and the method was produced in 2000. In Cryotop method, he was not satisfied the result of the survival rate, so he developed more than 18 points and produced a new one. That is Cryotec method. And the Cryotec method is simple and easy procedures. Also, it is achieved same protocol for all stages, such as Oxide, cleavages, and blastages. Okay. Additionally, every devices such as plate, straws, and solutions are optimized in each procedures. And as I said before, the same procedures from Oxide to the blastages. And also the obvious and fair procedures, and it's not depend on the experience. And the shape of the plate is semi-spherical bottom, and it reduces osmotic shock. And also the Cryotic straws has smooth grip and thin seat, achieving higher cooling rate and warming rate. And the solutions are less toxicity, protein-free, serum-free, and optimized concentration of the CPA. So it is possible to make time frame flexible, embryosis relaxed, and long shelf life, and safer for oocyte and oocyte and embryos. Okay, so now that you are familiar with the advantage of the Cryotec method, and let me introduce you to the vitrification first. Okay, so the purpose of each step of the vitrification is that depress, dehydrate, and concentrate with CPS, then freeze cells. The osmolarity will change in this way, like culture medium 300 to ES 25,000 and BS 5,000. Okay, so when you start the vitrification process, please take out this kit at least 1 hour before at room temperature between 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. Also, if you have the microscope with heating plate, please turn off the heating plate as well. And if you don't turn off the heating plate, it will warm the vitri plate and solutions. And when the solution gets warm, it would increase the toxicity of CPA little by little. And also the chemical reactions depend on the temperature. For example, when the temperature becomes 10 degrees higher, the chemical reactions becomes 2 times faster. And oppositely, when 10 degrees lower, 2 times slower. Cryotic protocol is designed for handling at the room temperature between 25 to 27 degrees Celsius. So please keep it very carefully. And preparation of the plate. Very simple. Please put the ES and the VS 300 microliter each, like this slide. And I would like to introduce about the position of the oocyte or embryos during the procedures. Okay, so there are only 3 positions of the oocyte or embryos you need to control. The number 1, please aspirate a small amount of medium and same length as 2 oocyte or embryos. Okay, and the number 2, please hold the oocyte at the tip of the pipette, and you will use this mainly in the vitrification process. And the number 3, please aspirate 3 millimeter or more than 3 millimeter of the medium following after the oocyte or embryos. This is used in the thawing steps. So this is a Cryotic vitrification protocol. So I will briefly introduce it. The vitrification has the 3 steps: ES, VS1, and VS2. The first step, in the ES step, you can put the oocyte or embryos on the surface of the ES, and the maximum time spent or observing fully recovering, you can move on to the VS1 step. And in the VS1 step, please check stop floating. And with the VS2 step, please check re-shrinking of the oocyte or embryos. And then move on to the loading part and finish of the vitrification process. So firstly, let me explain ES step by using the video protocol and explain with more details by using the slide. Okay, so let's check the video protocol first. Okay, this is our Cryotic video protocol. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so first, the preparation of the plate and the kit. So please, this kit at 25 to 27 degrees Celsius, at least for 1 hour. And please open the package like this. Okay, so first, please put the ES 300 microliter, the left side of the round well. Okay, and then please put the VS solutions, 300 microliter each, the rest of the 2 wells. Okay, and now you can see the small bubbles in the right side of the wells, but the bubbles disappear naturally, so please ignore them because our solutions have higher viscosity, so bubbles disappear naturally. So, and if you try to remove the bubbles, the volume of the solution might be a little bit changed. So please don't worry about the bubbles. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the ES step. So first, in a culture medium, please observe your oocyte or embryo shape. And then move on to the ES well. But please remember the osmolarity of the culture medium is 300, but the osmolarity of the ES will be 25,000. So we want to prevent your oocyte or embryos from osmotic shock. That is why please aspirate a small amount of the culture medium first, and then move on to the ES well. Okay, so please aspirate oocyte and small amount of the culture medium, and then just put on the surface of the ES. And start the timer. For the first time, please check shrinkage of the oocyte or embryos, like these videos. The oocyte immediately shrink and slowly gone to the bottom. Okay. And please wait the oocyte fully recovers or the maximum time is elapsed, whichever is earlier. So the maximum time is the oocyte and blastocyst will be 50 minutes and the cleavage is 12 minutes. And while we are waiting, ES step has completed, please prepare the cryotic straws and the liquid nitrogen. So please cut the capping side of the plastic package like this. And make it a little bit round and upside down and easy to take out the straws. And please put the straws on the groove of the plate. Okay, so this is the end of the ES step. So I will back to my slide and I will explain more details about ES step. Okay. Okay, so before putting the oocyte and embryos in the ES, please observe them because once you put them in the ES, they will shrink fast and then gradually recover to the original size. So it is important to confirm full recovery of oocyte or embryos in the ES step. So please remember or record original appearance by, for example, checking ratio of periventrine space and zona pellucida, and also the color of the cells and the shape of the cells and so on. And in the case of the blastocyst, if you vitrify the expanded blastocyst, especially their size more than 220 micrometer, please make sure to do the pressuring process, the collapsing process. This is because if it is big, it would need more time to be equilibrated than the time written in the protocol. And if you take much more time for ES, it is not gentle for the blastocyst. And also how to do the pressuring process. Please mix the DS, the yellow cap, dilution solutions, and the WS, the washing solutions, white cap, ratio of 2 to 3. So 20 microliter, for example, 20 microliter DS and 30 microliter WS is okay. And also please make small droplet of them and put the huge blastocyst into this droplet. And then the blastocyst will shrink automatically. The time depends on the size of the blastocyst, but average is around 1 to 2 minutes. But if, for example, if it takes 5 minutes, please don't worry about it. This is because it is just a hypertonic solutions. And this procedure is totally safe and gentle for the blastocyst. And our recommendation is not to use laser or needle to collapse it because those can be hard cell because directly touch the cells and might be the hard cell of the blastocyst. So our recommendation is to use the hypertonic solutions. Okay, so from the culture medium to ES, please aspirate a small amount of culture medium following the oocyte or embryos to protect from hyperdehydrations, because rapid osmolarity changes will be the risk of the hyperdehydrations. For example, when we move on to the oocyte, from solution A to B, it needs to aspirate extra previous medium to avoid osmotic shock. Then move on to the ES well. And after aspirating oocyte with small amount of culture medium, please move on to the ES well and put the oocyte on the surface of the ES. The purpose of the ES step is to replace water inside of the cell with ES. After putting oocyte on the surface of the ES, oocyte will gradually sink to the bottom while shrinking. So please check oocyte or embryos shrinking. And if oocyte don't shrink at all, please share about it with everyone by writing patient sheet or something like that, because such oocyte might not have a functioning cell membrane. So they can't dehydrate and hydrate properly, which is necessary in freezing thawing procedures, and might become damaged or die after thawing. Okay, so why does oocyte shrink in ES? This is because the ES includes only permeable CPAs. This is because the water flows out from the cell faster than CPAs come into inside the cell. And once we confirm oocyte completely recovered to the original size, please move on to the next BS1 step. However, please follow the maximum time for the equilibrations. Oocyte and blastocyst are 15 minutes. The cleavage stage embryo is 12 minutes. It means it is enough time, so you don't need to put extra time for ES, even if oocyte or embryos don't recover to the original size at the maximum time. And also that even if you put the oocyte or embryos in ES, much more time for waiting fully recovered, they will not recover, and it is not gentle for the oocyte or embryos. So while we are waiting, ES step has completed, please prepare the straws and the liquid nitrogen. But if you prepare the liquid nitrogen too early, it will be boiled of the liquid nitrogen, and the level of the liquid nitrogen will be down. And the gas phase, the dangerous temperature range will be appeared. And also it would lower the temperature around the working space, which is near oocyte or embryos. And it is not safe, so please prepare the liquid nitrogen just before the next step. Okay, and let me explain the BS1 and BS2 step by using video, and after that with more details by the slide. Okay, and now let's watch the video, but please remember the osmolarity of the ES is 25,000, but the osmolarity of the BS medium will be 5,000. So we also want to prevent from the osmotic shock. That is why from ES to VS1, please aspirate a smaller amount of the ES medium and then move on to the BS1. Okay, let's check the video. Okay, after ES step, please aspirate a smaller amount of ES medium after the oocyte, like this, and then put them in the middle depths of the BS1. And the oocyte immediately flow to the surface. So please pick up at the tip of the pipette and put on the bottom. And in the BS1 step, please wait until they are stopped floating. So first, please fit the focus to the oocyte or embryos like this. But the focus is moving, so it means not stop floating. So again, please fit the focus and wait until they are stopped floating again and again. Okay, again, fit the focus. And wait, stop floating. Okay, so now focus is not moving. It means stop floating. So you can move on to the BS2 step. Okay. Okay, so BS1 and BS2, the osmolarity will be same. So you don't need to aspirate extra medium. So please just aspirate the outside tip of the pipette and then move on to the BS2 step. Okay, so let's check the video. So first, washing the pipette in a fresh BS2 and pick up outside at the tip of the pipette. And then just put on the middle depths of the BS2 well. And BS2 step, please check the reshrinking of the oocyte or embryos from multiple angles if it is difficult to see. Like this video, kind of mix around the oocyte. And after you observing the oocyte shrink, you can move on to the loading step. But before moving to the loading step, I will introduce about BS1 and a BS2 step with more details by the slide. Okay. So after confirming the oocyte recovering or elapsing the maximum time, you can move on to the next BS1 step. So please aspirate oocyte with small amount of the ES medium and move on to the BS1 well. And please put the oocyte at the middle depths of the BS1 well. And also the purpose of the BS1 step is to replace ES with VS to dehydrate and concentrate the cells. And once we put the oocyte at the middle depths of the BS1 well, oocyte immediately float up to the surface. So please don't lose sight of the oocyte and please focus on it. And while floating up, ES will be replaced by BS gradually. And why oocyte float up? This is because the specific gravity of the ES is designed to be lighter than the BS. And the oocyte surrounded by the ES and float to the surface with being replaced by BS. And there is a little bit ES around the oocyte. So the oocyte is lighter than the BS now. Therefore, the oocyte will float to the surface quickly first while replacing in the BS. And after oocyte floating up to the surface, please pick up oocyte at the tip of the pipette and put the oocyte on the bottom of the BS1 to confirm replacement from ES to VS completely. And when it is replaced ES to VS, the oocyte will stop at the middle depths because weight become equal. And after VS1 step, please pick up oocyte at the tip of the pipette and please move on to the BS2 step. The purpose of the BS2 step is to confirm reshrinking. So please place at the middle depths of the BS2 and check whether oocyte shrink again or not. And why oocyte don't re-expand in the VS? This is because the VS includes trehalose, which come through cell membrane, and it has a lot of inducing that dehydration. So oocyte will dehydrate it. And dehydration by trehalose allows the concentration of Cpa in the VS solutions to be less than 30%. But the concentration of Cpa in the cells can be raised to about 50%. So this allows for safe vitrification while reducing the toxicity of the reagent. Okay, so let me explain loading part and capping part in the video first. And after that, I will explain it with more details by using slide as well. Okay, so after observing the oocyte shrink in the VS2, please pick up the oocyte at the tip of the pipette and then move on to the loading part. Okay, so let's start the video. After pick up the oocyte, please make a small droplet on the straw seed like this until you can see the oocyte in a droplet. Okay, so number 1 and number 2 drop, they are improper droplet because the drop height is not enough to protect from the surface tensions. So you can see the oocyte in a number 3 droplet. So number 3, number 4, and number 5 are proper droplet size and heights. So please be careful. The one droplet in one oocyte or one embryos in one droplet. Okay, so after checking the oocyte or embryos in a droplet, you can move on to the liquid nitrogen part. Sorry. Okay, and after checking the oocyte or embryos in a droplet, please pick up a straws and put into the liquid nitrogen immediately and stir the Cryotec straws and move on to the capping part. So first, please pick up the cap and put into the liquid nitrogen and please wait for 15 seconds until all bubbles are no longer appearing from the cap. And after stopping the bubbles, please insert the Cryotec straws into the cap with using the tweezers. And after that, please use your fingers and twist tighten the cap. And this is the end of the vitrification process. So after checking the shrunk oocyte, please move on to the loading part. And the loading part is very simple. And you just make a small droplet on the straw seed until seeing the oocyte in a droplet. And please put the one oocyte or one embryos in one droplet. And appropriate diameter of the droplet is 300 to 500 micrometer, like 1/3 of the width of the seed. And please do not minimize the droplet. This is because the drop minimization will cause surface tensions, and the surface tension will destroy the cytoskeleton of oocyte or embryos and might destroy them. And even if the diameter of the droplet is sufficient, the drop height is insufficient, the surface tension will occur as well. And also, if the droplet size is too big, please do not make it smaller by sucking solutions. And please make another droplet on another empty place. And also, if two oocyte or two embryos in one droplet, please pick up one oocyte and make another droplet on another empty place. And after loading part, please submerge the straw to the liquid nitrogen immediately and the stir until bubble is over. This is because the many bubbles from the liquid nitrogen will cover the Cryotec straws. So please run away from the bubbles and also avoid the bubbles attached to the seed. Also, to stir the Cryotec straws, it is possible to increase the cooling rate. And when the bubbles are over, please stand it at the corner and move on to the capping part. Okay, so last part is a capping part in the liquid nitrogen. So first, please put the cap into the liquid nitrogen with tweezers and wait until bubbles stop. The bubble stop means that the cap has cooled down sufficiently. And so please insert the Cryotec straws into the cap and close it in the liquid nitrogen. And then close by fingers again to close secure. So this is because if you use tweezers only to close, sometimes it might be easy to fold down the cap. So this is the end of the vitrification process. And from the next slide, I would like to introduce the warming process. But the warming process is more simple than the vitrification process. Okay. And the warming step has 3 steps: thawing, diluting, and washing. The osmolarity will also change in this way, like TS 2000, DS 1000 to WS 300. And as you can see this number, the WS is almost similar osmolarity with the calcium medium. And the warming process has same risk as vitrification process, such as the ice crystal formations and osmotic shock. So I would like to talk to you about some points to look out for avoiding these risks along with the protocol. Okay. And when you start the warming process, please put the TS and the warming plate at 37 degrees Celsius, and the DS, yellow cap, and WS, white cap, put at the room temperature 25 to 27 degrees Celsius, at least 2 hours before. However, if it is difficult to put them at least 2 hours before, you can put overnight as well. And our recommendation is using a non-CO2 incubator to warm at 37 degrees Celsius. But if you don't have any incubator without CO2, please close TS tightly by yourself. And if you have the perfume, please rub it with a perfume. And if you have a bigger tube, please put it in the bigger tube. This is totally safe. Then put it in the incubator. Also, if you have microscope with heating plate, please turn off the heating plate as well. Okay, and since we have to keep temperature of TS and warming plate at 37 degrees Celsius, so please remove the Cryotec cap first before preparing the plate. And also we would like you to warm TS until just before use. Please put the DS 300 microliter first. And after putting the DS, please take out the TS from the incubator and pour all quantities. And also beforehand, please focus your microscope quickly to the area where Cryotic will reach. Okay, and this is a Cryotec warming protocol, so I will introduce briefly. And the warming step has almost 3 steps, as I mentioned before: the TS, DS, WS1, and WS2. But the WS2 step is just a washing part. And in the TS step, the first step, that you can insert the straws into the TS, and please wait 1 minute. And after 1 minute, please aspirate oocyte or embryos following extra previous medium. And please move on to the bottom of the D as well. And the DS step is 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, please aspirate again oocyte and embryos following extra previous medium, and move on to the bottom of the WS1 well. And the WS1 step is 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, please move on to the WS2 part and finish of the warming process. So first, let me introduce TS and DS step in the video and explain more details by slide. Okay, so this is a warming video. Okay, let's start. Okay, so please prepare at least 2 hours before. And the warming plate. And the TS, please put the 37 degrees Celsius. And the DS and WS should be a room temperature. And first, please remove the cap in the liquid nitrogen and place the cryotic straws at the corner of the cooling rack. And then please prepare the plate. Okay, so first, please take out the warm plate. And first, please put the DS 300 micro, the left side of the round well. And after that, please put the warm TS, the whole buyout in the square well. Okay, and now we are ready to start the warming process. Oh, okay, sorry. So please set the, please do not forget to set the focus to the TS well. And then now we are ready to start the warming process. And from the cooling rack to TS, please insert within 1 second, but please don't be panic. Okay, let's start. Insert the straws, and please keep the straws into the TS for 1 minute. And 1 minute later, please remove the straws very gently and try to aspirate the Oxide. And then move on to the DS step. Okay, so again, the osmolarity, the osmolarity of the TS will be 2000, but the osmolarity of the DS will be 1000. So we also want to prevent from the osmotic shock. So that is why please aspirate 3 mm or more than 3 mm of the TS medium after oocyte or embryos. Okay, so let's check the video. Okay, so please aspirate oocyte following extra previous TS medium. And this is only the practice. So if we want to check whether you can aspirate 3 mm or not, please use this small indicator of the 3 mm. So this is just the only practice part. So, okay, and you can see the oocyte in the red circles, and also solutions might be 3 mm, a little bit more than 3 mm. That is okay. And move on to the bottom of the DS, and slowly expel of the TS medium, and just put the oocyte at the bottom, and slowly remove the pipette. And start the timer 3 minutes. And while we are waiting the 3 minutes, please put the WS1 and a 2, 300 microliter each. And after 3 minutes, you can move on to the WS1. But before moving to WS1 step, I will introduce more details about TS and DS step by using the slide. Okay. Okay, so after putting the TS, please start the warming process immediately. The more you shorten the distance from the cooling rack to TS, the more you can shorten the time to TS. Therefore, please place the cooling rack as close as possible to you. And then when you insert the Cryotic straws into the TS, please insert quickly and keep the Cryotic straws in TS for at least 1 minute. This is because if you move the straws or shake the straws in the TS, the temperature of TS falls down faster, and the oocyte will float and run away from your side. And it might be the get stress to the oocyte or embryos. And even if you can't see your oocyte or embryos at this time, please don't be panic. And TS step, as I mentioned before, should be at least 1 minute. So you don't need to hurry up for finding your oocyte or embryos. And also please remember, you have confirmed the oocyte or embryos is on the seed when you load it in the vitrification process. So please be patient. And after 1 minute, you can remove the Cryotic straws very gently and pick up oocyte. And when you pick up the oocyte or embryos and move on to the next step, please pick up oocyte and 3 mm or more than 3 mm of the TS following to prevent oocyte from osmotic shock. And you can measure it with a ruler on the lid of the plate. So just please practice it beforehand, like these pictures. And also, once you check how aspirate 3 mm, you don't need to use it every single clinical situations. Just use the practice. And after aspirating oocyte and a TS medium, and please move on to the bottom of D as well, and expel TS fast, like making TS mountain very slowly, so that TS, which is surrounding oocyte, and DS will be mixed very slowly. And please wait 3 minutes. Okay, so while we are waiting 3 minutes, please put the WS 300 microliter each in the rest of the wells. Okay, and the next step, WS1 and WS2. So let me introduce them with video and slide. And please remember, the osmolarity of DS now 1000, but the osmolarity of WS will be 300. So we want to prevent from the osmotic shock. So please do the same process, aspirate oocyte, and after the 3 mm or more than 3 mm of the DS medium, and then move to the WS1 well. Okay, so let's check the video. Okay, and after 3 minutes, please aspirate 3 mm of the DS after oocyte or embryos, and then move on to the bottom of WS1 and expel DS very slowly, and just put the oocyte at the bottom. And start the timer. Before start the timer, please observe the condition of the oocyte, because you might observe the oocyte or embryos a little bit shrink, but that is okay. And start the timer. And after 5 minutes, please observe it again, and you can see the oocyte or embryos start to a little bit recovers or fully recovers. You can judge it is okay, it is survived. And move on to the WS2 step. Okay, so WS2 step is just a washing and no longer change the osmolarity. So please pick up the oocyte or embryos at the tip of the pipette. and just put the surface of WS2, left side or right side, whichever you want. And after putting oocyte on the surface, the oocyte gradually sinking to the bottom by its own weight. So please washing the pipette briefly. And please try to pick up your oocyte one more time, and then just put. And just twice. Okay. And this is end of the warming process. Okay, so let's back to the slide. Okay, and the DS step was 3 minutes. So after 3 minutes, please aspirate oocyte and DS medium, and please move on to the bottom of WS1 and expel DS fast, like making DS mountain. And after placing oocyte on the bottom, please observe it before waiting 5 minutes. Okay, so here I would like to introduce about dangers of sudden change of osmolarity. So why in the vitrification process, we only had to bring in a small amount of, such as 2 lengths of the oocyte or embryos for preventing osmotic shock. But why do we have to aspirate 3 millimeter or more than 3 millimeter of previous medium in the warming process? This is because the sudden change of osmolarity will cause hyperhydrations and hyperdehydrations. And in case of hyperdehydrations, interval of cell membrane become narrower and organelle will be crushed. And in case of hyperhydrations, interval of cell membrane become wider and membrane will be broken. And let me illustrate it with numbers. And if the original size is 100%, when the size of the oocyte become wider and the membrane, when the size of the oocyte become less than 30% because of hyperdehydration in the vitrification process, or more than 130% because of hyperhydration in the warming process, both will induce the oocyte damage or death. However, the cell membranes have a strong tendency to become more narrower in spacing. So as you can see these numbers, you can see that thawing process is more dangerous than the freezing process. So that is why we have to aspirate 3 millimeter or more than 3 millimeter of the previous medium in the warming process. Okay, so let's back to the protocol. And after 5 minutes of the WS1 step, please move on to the WS2 step. It is just a washing part, so please pick up oocyte in the tip of the pipette and put on the surface of WS2. And once put it, it will sink to the bottom by its own weight. So please do it just twice. Okay. So this is the end of the thawing process. And after thawing, please culture 2 hours before doing ICSI and 1 hour to 3 hours cultures before doing embryo transfer. Okay, almost done, but I will introduce frequently asked question about the Cryotec method. Okay, so how many oocyte embryos can be vitrified with 1 straws? And it depends on the embryologist skills and experience, but we recommended up to 3, but skilled embryologists can do more. 4 or 5 is okay. And how many oocyte embryos can be vitrified with 1 plate and the same solutions? It depends on the embryologist skills and experience also, but we recommend up to 15 using 5 straws, for example. And as I mentioned before, how long should I culture before ICSI after thawing? We recommended 2 hours. And how long should I wait to vitrify after denudations? You can start the vitrification process right away. And what is the post-production shelf life of vitrification and a warming kit? 1 year, because our solutions are protein-free and serum-free. And what is a non-permeable and permeable cryoprotectant? We use trehalose instead of sucrose to optimize higher viscosity and ethylene glycol and dimethyl at the minimum concentrations. And can we use a Cryotec method to thaw embryos frozen by other method? Absolutely yes. And can we use a Cryotec method with non-lipolyzed product? Yes, you can. For example, the Irvine Scientific Solutions and the Kitazata product. Okay, so thank you very much for listening my presentation for a long time. Okay, so let's moving on to the question and answer time.
Thank you very much, Yui.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we will start doing this Q&A session here. There's a question from Neural at 9:36 p.m. Can you see that, Yui?
Sorry, please wait a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
9:36
9:36 p.m.
Okay.
If oocytes embryobrasis was vitrified using other brand, is it possible to thaw with a Cryotec thawing meter? You just tell me about it. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your questions. Yes, you can thaw the embryos by by using the other method. Yes, you can.
Okay. Next question from Lee. Can I know during the thawing any reason causing embryo zona pellucida presented or attached with a bubble and keep on floating? Is it due to the ice formation?
I think it is not due to the ice crystal formations. The two reasons. One reasons in the vitrification protocols, and after you Cryotec straws into the liquid nitrogen, and if you want to avoid the bubbles attached to oocyte, please stir in the liquid nitrogen. And also, when you try to thaw the Cryotec straws, please insert from the tip of the straws so that you can avoid the bubbles attach the embryos. And also, if you do the loading part, and if you make the bigger droplet, then sometimes a little bit crack on the drop, and there's something that bubbles inside of the droplet and attach the bubbles the surface of the donor pellucida. So please be careful. Please try to make a little bit more small droplet. And also in the vitrification process, the stir in the liquid nitrogen, and in the thawing, please insert from the tip. And it might be avoid to bubbles touch the oocyte or embryos. Yeah, and the seed as well.
Okay, thanks. Next question from Ashok. We don't provide a certification download link. We will send to our local distributor, and then local distributor will send it to you. Next question is from C. We do a PZTF for less than 90%, 90% of our patient, after blastocyst biopsy, the size of the blastocyst will be smaller. Do you recommend to wait for the blastocyst to recover first before vitrification? Or is it better to freeze while it is still shrinking after biopsy?
Okay, so I think it is depend on the your clinic situations. So both will be okay, but if you do the biopsied blastocyst, if you do the vitrification for the biopsied blastocyst, please wait. Please put the ES for the maximum time, the 15 minutes, because we don't recognize the original size because the biopsy, after biopsy, a little bit small. So we don't recognize the original size. So for safety reasons, please wait the maximum time in the ES step.
Thank you. Next question from Dr. Ravi. As mentioned, to collapse our blastocyst less than 220 millimeter, how to measure the size?
Okay.
Any scaled method do you suggest?
Okay, so if you have the microscope with the micrometer, and you can measure it with the micrometer for the blastocyst size. And if you don't have the micrometer, please prepare the, for example, 250 microns, the stripper tip or the gas capsule pipette. And if you try to aspirate the blastocyst, and if you can't aspirate the blastocyst, it might be need to do the pressuring process. But if you can aspirate the blastocyst by using this side of the pipette, you don't need to do the pressuring process. So this is just recommendations.
Thank you. Next question from Joanne. At the time of thawing, the very first second in TS, there are bubbles sticking on the surface of the Cryotec plate. Sometimes the bubble just cover or beneath the vitrified embryo. Should I need to remove the bubble with the pipette immediately, or should I need to wait for a while?
Okay, so if you find the bubbles in the TS step, please, please wait 1 minute. And after 1 minute, please aspirate in and out and try to remove the bubbles. Because if you move on to the DS step, the DS step is just a dilution step and you need to wait 3 minutes. So in the TS step, after 1 minute, you can do anything. So please remove the bubbles in the TS and after 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Cho. Can we aspirate the floating oocyte in VS1 and put them at the bottom of VS1 repeatedly for several times until they stop floating, instead of wait them to stop floating?
Okay, and if you, for example, if you put the oocyte in the BS at the bottom and the oocyte will float up to the surface again, please pick up and place at the bottom and another place and again until they are stop floating.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Zia. Is it safe to leave oocyte or embryos blastocyst in ES until the maximum time, 12 or 15 minutes, even though they may have reached original size in less than 12 or 15 minutes?
Oh, okay. If the oocyte embryos blastocyst will recover until the maximum time, for example, around 6 minutes, and you can see, oh, it's completely recovered to the original size, you can move on to the next VS1 step immediately. So you don't need to wait the maximum time.
And then why do you suggest to keep the straw in TS even though the embryos already detached?
Oh, okay. So if you remove the straws or shake the straws, even the oocyte detached from the seed, but the water flows appearing and the temperature of the TS might be falls down faster, and it might be the stress to the oocyte or embryos. That is why we want you to keep the straws just 1 minute. And after 1 minute, you can of course remove the straws. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And next question from also Cho, like during the warming process, does the oocyte need to be in TS for 1 minute? Oh, this is actually the same question we just had.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Next question from Zia. What is the maximum time that the embryo can stay in TS without causing damage? The minimum time we should leave in TS should be 1 minute.
Yes, the minimum time should be the 1 minute. The maximum time, we actually don't decide on the maximum time, but sometimes in the workshop, for example, the junior embryosis, it's difficult to find the oocyte in a TS, and the embryosis stayed, for example, 15 minutes, and after that, he finally found the oocyte in the TS after 15 minutes, but the oocyte is totally safe. But in the clinical situations, the 15 minutes is not realistic time. So maybe 2 to 3 minutes is a normal time. So 2 to 3 minutes is okay. Yes. So please don't be panic.
Okay, next question. How many times do you suggest to warm up the vitrification in the warming solutions? Especially TS, as it needs to be warmed up to 37 degrees.
Okay, so to maximize the warming rate, the TS should be warmed up 37 degrees Celsius. So how many times do you suggest to warm up? Okay. So
well, first of all, we don't warm up the vitrification solutions.
yeah, the vitrification solution should be a room temperature.
Yes.
So if you remove the vitrification, take out the vitrification solution from the fridge and back to the room temperature, kind of 25 to 27, probably it needs to keep the room temperature minimum 1 hour. And also the TS, the 37 degrees Celsius, please warm up minimum 2 hours. But if you have the emergency cases in the warming process and you don't have the warm TS, please prepare the 40 degree hot water, and please the TS vials from the fridge and put the 40 degrees Celsius hot water for 3 minutes. It might be the 37 degrees Celsius. So this is for only emergency cases. So please try to warm this by using the hot water, just the only emergency cases.
Thank you. Next question from Jonathan. Thank you, Yui, for the presentation.
Thank you very much.
What's the best and least harmful way to separate the embryo from the straw if they stick in the TS warming step?
I think the best way is just to shake the straws, very natural things. But if you shake the straws and the oocyte don't separate from the seed, the second step is just to blow the medium to separate the oocyte. And still oocyte touch the straws. The final ways to aspirate the oocyte or embryos directly from the seed. But the aspirating directly, sometimes it might be the touch the cells directly, so it's a little bit dangerous for the oocyte or embryos. So the first choice, please shake the straws, and the second choice, the blow the medium to separate, and the final choice is just aspirate in and out. Okay.
Thank you. But you have to wait 1 minute first. After 1 minute, you can blow, or you can shake, or you can aspirate. Another question is from Tao. May I put the
Logo down.
sorry.
Yeah.
May I put the logo down?
Yes, you
With the
can.
straw.
Yeah, and the logo side and not logos. Logo side and the other side is the same material. So if you put the oocyte or embryos, the other side, it is totally safe. So you can put the logo down, is okay.
Okay. Next question. Oh, this is also from Jonathan. I think he's asking
Okay.
in the TS step.
Yeah.
For fully
Especially-
hatched blastocyst.
Okay,
And
yeah,
it was
that is
stuck in a sheet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially for even if the hatched blastocyst is, please be more careful to do that, because the hatched blastocyst has no zonal pellucidal, and it sometimes tend to touch the stryper tip or the gas pastille tips. So yeah, please use a little bit more the bigger stryper tip or the gas pastille pipette, and try to blow the medium and aspirate the blastocyst. But the first choice is just shake the straws.
Okay, thank you. And next question from Adele. Adele from Alpha. Hi, Adele. Sometimes the oocyte doesn't stay in the mountain in DS.
Okay.
It flows up. Why is it?
Okay, so yeah, it also happen for the blastocyst as well, but it might be the good situations because the dilution step has already completed and the specific gravity of the oocyte already done. So that is why the specific gravity oocyte lighter than the DS, that is why the oocyte float to the surface. So when you observe the oocyte or embryos in the DS step before 3 minutes, for example, and the oocyte floats to the surface, please leave it for 3 minutes. And after 3 minutes, please try to aspirate oocyte, and following after the 3 millimeter or more than 3 millimeter of the DS medium, and back to the protocol of WS1 step. So yeah, please don't worry about it. Just a good situations.
Thank you. Next question from Saeed from Jordan. Thanks, dear Yui, for the great presentation. If you allow me, I would like to highlight the advantage of droplets tech from Cryotec comparing to aspiration excess media surrounded the oocyte or embryo. The aspiration technique is very tricky as it could cause damage. That's I think he's just giving us the suggestions for
Okay.
Yeah.
Should
Thank
I?
you.
私がお伝えすればいいですか？
Yeah.
あ、
こ
Thank
こ
you very
は
much.
はい大丈夫。
Thank you very much, Dr. Said.
And next question is Estelle from Estelle. Self collapsing
Self-collapsing. Okay.
embryo will vitrify
Vitrify immediately.
immediately or wait for expansion, then vitrify.
Oh, okay. So it also depend on the clinic. So both will be okay. But if you wait for the expansion of the blastocyst, and that blastocyst will be more than 220 micro, you need to collapse it to small again. So please be careful. That is. So the both is okay if you do the vitrification process right way, and if you wait to recovers, both okay.
Thank you. We actually have so many questions. I'm not sure we have enough time to do all this, but I just want to say thank you for the kind words. I'm happy that everybody liked this UA's presentation. Okay, so another question from Wei. Is there any difference in terms of survival rate for blastocysts, grade 3BB and 4BB vitrification? Do you recommend to freeze embryo at 3BB or 4BB?
Okay, the survival rate is no differences between 3BB and 4BB. And if you don't care about, you don't care during the collapsing process, you can wait to freeze the 4BB. But if you don't want to do the pressing process, please freeze the 3BB embryos. The survival rate is both will be same.
Thank you. Next question from Dr. Ravi. Why warming 37 degrees Celsius in TS, then followed by room temperature in DS and WS? Can it be continued in 37 degrees Celsius?
Okay, and our solutions, the DS and the WS, has the HPC, and HPC will be sometimes crystallizes in the under the 37 degrees Celsius situation. So that is why we recommend to use DS and WS should be keep at the room temperature 25 to 27 degrees Celsius.
Thank you. Next question from Tao. The good time culture to use after thawing blastocysts. I think it means
Time culture to use.
when is a good time to culture? I mean,
maybe the culture time. So okay, so maybe our recommendation is after thawing 1 to 3 hours culture to do the embryo transfer. But actually Dr. Kawayama want you to do the embryo transfer after thawing right away, because the mother's uterus is the best environment for the blastocyst. But sometimes the patient want to the beautiful blastocyst shape, like an expanded blastocyst. So the Japanese clinic tend to culture after thawing for 1 hour to 3 hours.
Next question from Wei. For pre-shrinking blastocysts more than 220, do you recommend to leave them in ES for the maximum time, such as 15 minutes? Or we can freeze it as long as it reaches the full size.
Okay, so I recommend it to leave the pressure-linked blastocyst in ES for the maximum time at 15 minutes because we don't recognize the original size. So please put the ES maximum time around 15 minutes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm sorry. Yeah, we have another 21 the question still. Therefore, today we would like to finish the Q&A session until the so far, and so after that, we will send all of the attendees of the another questions and the answers. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for joining the fruitful workshop. And this workshop will be continuously the monthly basis. And we would like to make a presentation on the new the knowledge from Japan or Tokyo and or another the items. And we'd like to be a good partner with all of your customer. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending and all the questions. We'll share everything later.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry it is difficult to answer everything, but after that, I will email everyone with the answers. Thank you
Okay.
very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you next
Bye.
time.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.